The overwhelming majority of these blogs appear and die in a matter of months, having been read by few if any readers. Blogs are many and innumerable, an open, changing set of unique expressions. At the same time, the standardization supplied by blog services, right, the kind of basic layouts, archival features, titles, banners, ads, and widgets, format blogs as ultimately interchangeable, the same, one virtually indistinguishable from another. The common format that makes blogs blogs is a condition for the unique production of singular bloggers, and vice versa. Without the unique offerings, indeed the promise that each voice can be heard, each experience documented, each opinion expressed, blogging has no point. We can approach this same entanglement from a different direction. Blogs offer exposure and anonymity at the same time. As bloggers, we expose ourselves, our feelings and experiences, loves and hates, desires and aversions. Yet we often write as if we've opened ourselves to nearly no one, to just a select few, to a small community of those we trust, perhaps because we can't see them. Knowing full well that we are one among millions, we may find ourselves relieved not to have so many hits, so many comments. Strangers and opponents remind us of our exposure, our visibility, vulnerability, and ultimate lack of control. Now, this is a picture of Boyd Rice. He actually is only tangential to the story, but I liked the picture because it's kind of shocking. In 2006, I gave a talk at MIT and part of a symposium on evil. And the big picture of this thing on evil was Boyd Rice, who is a kind of radical artist and a former member, or former high priest of the Church of Satan, who is on like one of the few people to interview directly Charles Manson. So Boyd Rice was the big kind of star of this kind of conference on evil. As I guess that director thought, well, maybe he's closest to evil that you can get. And so, but the number of folks in the audience weren't like your basic academics or graduates, and graduate students and art people going to an art conference on evil. They were actually neo-Nazi followers of Boyd Rice. And so after the symposium, one of the followers, who always writes under an assumed name, made a long comment on my blog, which is called Eyesight. And the blog is basically, my political stuff and just like my opinions and a bunch of stuff about Zizek, right? So it's like, it's not like 1 million readers. So I'm lucky to get like 500 a day. But everybody who wants to like talk about Zizek and the left, that's the audience, not neo-Nazis. So the guy writes, and this is directly from my blog. You live in an environment where debate is not free and your half-witted ideas are protected and allowed an existence that exposure to reason would not afford them. You imply here that you're being criticized because you criticized Bush. No, you're being criticized because you sounded stupid while criticizing Bush. What do you think of the world? Do you think there are some politically correct blog police that are going to stop people from criticizing you like they do at your university? In the United States, there is a First Amendment, and just like the First Amendment allows you to prattle on like a moron with vapid ideas that no real person takes seriously, it allows people to point out that your ideas are vapid and you're prattling on like a moron. Not everyone has to be nice to you. Not everyone has to agree with you, and your extreme pathological reaction to criticism is disturbing. You are not fully developed psychologically. And I strongly recommend you quit your job and go out into the real world to toughen up a bit, because if you can't debate a few easy criticisms, at some point the real world will eat you. Even the moron claiming I'm a racist slumlord is doing better than you. I didn't know what to think, and I didn't know how to respond. I didn't respond. I mean, it was just, it's like his remarks can momentarily shatter the presumptions and expectations that enabled me to write so openly like I did in the first year or so of having the blog. They exposed the specificity, the fragility, the context dependency of the writing I was doing, confronting me with the fact that my fantasized audience was not my real one. I'm going to go back then to this matter of the singular and the multiple. Blogs can be useful political tools. They let activists report on their activities, plans, and aspirations. They help them meet up and coordinate. At the same time, they deliver lots of information to activists' opponents. For example, the university officials wanting to know which students are responsible for the sit-in, the law enforcement officials trying to diminish the impact of planned demonstrations. Privacy and consumer protection advocates remind us of the accumulation of data on consumers, data easily mined for the sake of the increasingly specific and personalized targeting of ads. Yet this information in need of protection is the open content of millions of blogs and social network profiles. Blogs make monitoring easy. There's no need to spy. I'll tell you everything and more. In short, blogging relies on a fantasy of exposure without exposure correlative to the indistinguishable mass of the singularly unique. It's like the thrill of telling a secret without being burdened by anxiety over its being told. Exposure without exposure. Social networks like MySpace and Facebook deploy a similar fantasy. One can share one's life with one's friends without repercussion. On the one hand, because one has specifically friended those in one's network, one can rest assured that one's secrets are safe. If you can't trust your friends, who can you trust? On the other, the drive to grow one's network, to friend people with whom one works, people from different parts of one's life, belies the illusion of control over one's personal information. Not only is one's data shared with third parties, but the surveys and games that flourish in social network environments expand third-party access. Access to my friend is awakening access to me. And a typical Facebook profile reveals a person's name, age, birthday, location, occupation, high school and/or at university, relationship status, sexual orientation, political affiliation, religion, and personal appearance. Add to this the fact that most users mention events they attend, groups to which they belong, causes they support, and the result is a very heavy degree of exposure. Now, typically, we as in, like, this is what I think y'all are thinking, we respond to these paranoid lines of thought with deflection. It isn't me about whom data is collected. It's us. It's an aggregate. It's our patterns, not mine. It's how many of us refer to a new movie or click on an ad, not whether I do. As with blogging, our participation in social networks relies on the supposition that we expose but are not exposed, that we are unique but ultimately indistinguishable. Developing a notion offered by Giorgio Agamben, Dominic Petman considers the problem of the interchangeable yet irreversible in terms of whatever being. For Petman, as for Agamben, whatever being points to new modes of community and new forms of personality, anticipated by the dissolution of inscriptions of identity through citizenship, ethnicity, and other modern markers of belonging. So you might think like, oh, post-race here, right? Like Obama's post-race would be an example of this kind of dissolution of the kind of marker, the dissolution of inscriptions of identity. Describing the character actor as exemplary of whatever being, Petman glosses the concept as, quote, an enactment of existence without qualities, or at least qualities so interchangeable and obvious that they erase all identity, end quote. Agamben emphasizes that the whatever in whatever being relates not to singularity as indifference to a common property, but only in its being such that it is, Agamben writes. In this conception, such and such being is reclaimed from its having this or that property, which identifies it as belonging to this or that set, to this or this class, this or that class, like the Reds, the French, the Muslims. And it is reclaimed not for another class, nor for the simple generic absence of any belonging, but for its being such, for belonging itself. So Agamben's point is that there is belonging, but not to anything in particular. Asking to what, for Petman and Agamben, mistakenly prioritizes the set over the very condition of belonging. What matters is belonging, not that to which one belongs. Okay, so we have